Oh, yes. Welcome back to another edition of New Amsterdam Radio, the podcast for creators, thinkers, and doers. It is I, the mayor, Flobo Boyce, in the mayor's office, hang with people who are doing the dang thing. Now, if you remember during the pandemic, I tried my hand at novelty music. It's called Alone the Cub, Money Shuffle, and other things you probably laugh at. So, my guest today can help me navigate the musical waters. Please welcome Nismah Osman, who's going to tell me how dope I am with a microphone. No, I'm just kidding. Welcome to the show. Let's talk music. How's it going?
Thank you. Thank you. I am doing great. Thank you. How are you?
You know what? I can't complain. I just got back in from Dubai, of all places, which
Wow,
is
that's
which is a
cool.
yeah life. Where's the lifetime situation? I was
What
there
were
to
you doing
cover.
in Dubai? Can I
There's
ask?
a new baseball league out there called Baseball United, and I was flown out to like be a content creator out there to really like hype up the show. So
Nice.
as a baseball nerd, I mean, I'm a Brooklyn born. Let's go Mets.
Oh,
Being
that's
out there and
cool.
seeing former Mets play was pretty cool, pretty dope.
That's so fun. Well, welcome back.
Yeah, it is weird going back home. You're like, oh yeah, I am not a hotel. I have to actually clean after myself.
Right.
But enough about me. Let's talk about you. Music is your passion, your path. How'd you get involved with that? With so many things that you're talented with.
Yeah. I mean, music has been in my blood since I was young. I mean, I think everybody says that, so it's not that exciting to hear, but I've kind of always had the songwriting bug. So when I was a kid, I remember writing songs as young as 8 or 9, and they, for an 8 or 9 year old, not being half bad. And I just kind of always felt like I had um, this knack for music, and then it kind of just kind of turned into really a way for me to process life. I had sort of an adverse childhood, so it kind of became my outlet for expressing my pain, and I think it, in a way, it sort of became my best friend, in that it was non-judgmental, right? And I know that's probably corny, but it's truth. So that kind of one thing just kind of led to another. I started learning some instruments. I learned piano, and then I taught myself guitar. And then when I was in high school, I took all the music courses that I could. And luckily, my school had a lot of options in that regard. So I just kind of doubled down and realized that, hey, I can really fucking do this if I wanted to. And then what really sealed the deal for me was I went to a local singer songwriter convention that they had in my town, and I got to talk to, mind you, I was like 13, right? Had no idea what I was doing, but
Right.
I got to talk to people who were actually doing it in real life, and they were music industry executives and artists, touring artists, and people who were really doing it. And I just kind of, from that moment, I was like, music is for me. And so that led me on a journey to study it in college. And then I learned music production, and then just kind of one thing after another. And here we are, however many years later, and I'm working on so many other things. And now I'm helping other people kind of hone their own craft and make friends with their musical passion. So,
So take a step back. What was your hometown, if you don't mind me asking? What part
yeah,
of?
sure. I'm from a small beach town in New Jersey,
Okay.
called Cape May. You may have heard of it since
Oh
you're
yeah,
from
yeah,
New
yeah,
York.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Many different shore towns. We all visited and tried the pizza because everyone tells me Jersey pizza is better. It's not, but I had to go figure it out myself. No
No,
offense, no offense, no offense.
I'll agree with that. I'm from Jersey. I'm defensive of New Jersey, but New
Yeah,
York, there's nothing better.
absolutely. So these musicians came down to your school. Was recruiting these musicians to come down to see it? It was just kind of like there was tours happening. Like how that connection worked? You think?
Yeah. So actually, one of my high school music teachers, her son, I think still is, uh, in a band. They're like a pop punk band, and I wish I remembered the name off the top of my head. It might come to me, but they hit a lot of traction in Europe, and so he basically kind of set this whole thing up where he brought a bunch of music industry people to this tiny little beach town in the middle of nowhere, New Jersey, and kind of just made it happen. And then
Wow.
my music teacher, knowing that I was super passionate about music, said, "Nisma, why don't you go over and check this thing out?" And it was over from there.
You had mentioned that you came from an adverse childhood, and of course, share what you're more comfortable with. But when you decided that music is something you want to pursue and different flavors of that, did you get support from the family, or is it one of those things where it's like, I'm going to do this despite your wishes?
So believe it or not, I was actually very supported by my family with music. It was the other stuff that I was unsupported with. So I grew up in a very a strictly religious household, and I was actually closeted. I didn't even know that I was, because it was just so suppressed. And so in that regard, I music kind of was my only safe space, and I almost think because it was something that was like the one thing that I got support from my family, that I kind of clung to it even more, just being a kid and kind of wanting to get that support and that, sense of pride from your parents and your family. I think it pushed me in that direction a bit too.
Yeah.
But yes, I was very grateful to have that support, and I think it made a big difference.
Yeah, and if you don't mind me asking, you're okay now. You're totally can find a way to influence your music with your childhood, or is it one of the things you kind of suppress and keep separate?
No, I embrace all of my past. I have processed a lot of it. I'm sure there's more to process as life throws you things here and there, but I feel that I've kind of created a system, especially through my writing, where I process that pain and those issues through music, and that's kind of really my go-to method now of kind of expressing that. And really, my hope for music, and again, not monumental, but my hope for music is that it kind of can act as a vehicle for healing for others, to really access those deep truths and those deep pains that kind of sit underneath the surface that are hard to access otherwise. And that's what, like Bob Marley said, it was the great thing about music is that when it hits you, you feel no pain. And I think that that's really true, and that music kind of really acts as that bridge from our pain to our healing, and I hope to be that at least for a couple people.
Just talking about your career quickly, I had a chance to check out some songs. You and Me, "Sexy Today." These are they're bangers.
Oh, thanks for checking those out.
Yeah, I do my research sometimes, and they're really considered pop songs.
Yeah,
But I know pop can be a very like divisive term when it comes to
sure.
creating music. But what's your take on that? Being able to have these themes for consumption for more people versus
Yeah.
the bloom and do of it being pop music and not real music and yada yada yada.
Yeah, I love that question because this was a process I had to overcome in myself. So I actually I fell in love with pop when I was in college. I went to Berkeley College of Music and I studied songwriting there, and I ended up in like a pop songwriting, hit songwriting class. And it was in that class that I had to kind of really make peace with the fact that I fucking love pop music.
Oh yeah.
And I think that there's a purity or a puritanism, I'm whatever the term is, with a lot of musicians that kind of feel or have this idea that if you make pop music, you're selling out. But the reality is that writing really good, effective pop music is really hard.
Mhm.
And it's actually a truly difficult skill to develop. And it's one of those things where it has to sound like it's easy, in order for you to have done your job, because the average listener doesn't have the mental bandwidth, especially these days, to process something overly complicated. So you kind of have to figure out how to express a difficult or deep or complex concept in a really simple way, and that's a lot easier said than done.
Right.
So what I'll say to the pop haters or the people who maybe haven't made peace with pop, or think that pop is selling out or anything like that, I would say just try writing a pop song just one afternoon and see how far you get, and I guarantee you'll have a new respect for it. And the other thing that I love about pop is that it does reach a wide audience, and to me, I'm always objectives based. I'm an objectives based thinker. So when I think, all right, I have this song or this concept, that I want to share, how can I reach the largest audience? The first thing that comes to mind is, oh, okay, I'll use this pop music vehicle because it's going to reach the most people, and it's going to be the simplest way for them to kind of consume the message.
It's funny you mentioned that about the idea of pop because I grew up in Brooklyn in the '90s, and so that was that was very hip hop dominated. And
Yeah.
I will not forget this day. We were at a school field trip to the South Street Seaport because everyone goes to the Seaport at some point.
Yep.
It's like it's like we're going to Seaport again. And I remember like buying my first pop single. It was Bewitched. Remember that like band from the
Oh,
90s?
yeah.
And you must have thought I was like buying porn. I was like looking over my shoulder. I'm like saying, is coast clear? I'm like trying to put it at the
Yeah.
same goodie counter. And the guy's like, no, it's fine, cool. They're dope. I'm like, I don't think you understand, bro. Like, it's just funny how pop
Be
music is
shunned for
so,
this.
yeah, exactly. It's so hated, but popular
Yeah.
music isn't bad. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate that question.
So shifting gears a bit, because you could have took all this knowledge and expertise and kept it for yourself, but you're actually working to build a platform to help out other artists. What was that
Yeah.
like, the decision to transition, or at least add that to your portfolio of skills to help other artists get themselves ready?
Yeah. I always felt really passionately, and I do feel passionately about sort of developing um a career and a life really that's built on intentionality. And so with that, I almost think that I see the trends in the music industry kind of slowly dipping towards a a giant black abyss where music will go to die, and that's because um
Wow.
yeah, I know it's a big statement, but I have logic behind that. And the reason I say that is because artists don't know how to carve their own paths for the most part that are based on this intentional model. They are, for the most part, following these traditional marketing pathways. For example, posting on social media constantly to try to go viral, or kind of bugging people in their DMs to stream their songs, and paying Spotify playlist pluggers to get their songs on popular playlists also they can make literally a few cents in royalties. um, and I that's just heartbreaking to me because
Mhm.
they don't have to do that if they just take a little bit of time to kind of zoom out and say, all right, what are really all my options? Instead of just following this massive herd of people that are kind of trying these traditional methods. And Flobo, when I tell you massive herd of people,
Mhm.
there are upwards of 50,000 songs uploaded to Spotify per day,
Wow.
right? So talk about like trying to cut through the noise. The competition, it's not even competition at this point. It's like a needle in a haystack, really. And the systems that are in place by the record labels and the big publishing companies to get priority on the Spotify streaming playlists, it makes it even more difficult to try to do it on your own. So one of the reasons that I feel compelled to kind of preach from the mountaintop about this is because I feel that a lot of really talented, passionate artists are going to sink into that dark abyss, as dramatic as it may sound,
Yeah.
just because they're going to get burnt out, because you can only post on TikTok for so many years hoping to go viral until you just get tired of it, or you got to pay your bills, or you have a family, or XYZ, right? So that's kind of where I'm hoping to pull people into the sync licensing world, because it's such a great income stream that you can do from your house without any connections necessary, besides the few that you need to kind of get into the licensing agency. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Yeah, having no energy, I'm all about that life because I wrote two songs and I was like, "Whoa, this is hard work. I can't imagine doing an
Yeah.
album." But I felt on my end, and maybe you can help me out with this, that creatives, especially when it comes to music, there's so much work in recording time and
Yep.
uploading that the business side of it kind of goes by the wayside. So
Oh
when
yeah.
someone like yourself says, look, I have solutions to help you out on your career, do you
Yep.
get met with resistance? Like, you don't know my steez, bro, or people are like, oh, thank God, help me out. Like, what's been the feedback when you present your business to other artists?
To be brutally honest, it depends on the person and the mindset they're coming from.
Mhm.
Um, there's a lot of, and I say this with gentleness and love, there's a lot of entitlement in that I've noticed in the world at large, but in the music industry, and I think it's comes from really a resentment towards society for not valuing arts enough, and that's
Mhm.
not their fault. But it's really difficult to make money from an art unless you have some sort of business acumen, right? So I think that where I see the most resistance is in the people who haven't accepted that they are going to have to develop some sort of business acumen in order to be successful in with their art, unless of course they have wealthy parents or family members or friends or connections who can kind of help them leapfrog to the front, but most people don't have that luxury, right? Um so what I'll say is the feedback is directly correlated to that person's mindset, and if they've done the work to sort of be able to say, okay, I'm going to need to really put my money where my mouth is, literally, uh to figure out how to make this viable and sustainable and lucrative. And so trying to get somebody from one side of the bridge to the other is really hard. So that's not really my work. My work is kind of meeting people who have already done that work to get to the other side of the bridge to bring them home.
I feel like there was an Instagram influencer by the name of TZ. She said that musicians are content creators, and I feel I'm not sure if I agree with that completely, but I've seen a rise of like keyword like songs named after other people, songs
Yeah,
named after cities. This is
yeah,
obviously a trend to have people search for things. Does
yep.
that cheapen the effect of creating craft? If I say, well, who's hot right now? Beyonce. I'm calling this Beyonce. Like, is that kind of weird? Or is it kind of, hey, look, whatever you could do to cut through the noise?
Well, I think that's a symptom. I mean, I won't judge it in and of itself. I think it depends on how you feel about it, if you feel like it's authentic to you or not. But what I will say is that it is a symptom of the larger problem that I was talking about before, where people are so desperate to cut through the noise that they have to depend on the keyword searches to find song ideas so that people can find them over their competition. There are a lot of other ways to kind of take the path, or I'll say it this way, there are a lot of other paths less traveled that people just don't know about or are not willing to try because they're not as popular or they're not as mainstream. And so again, to what you were saying, I would say that if it works, great. But it's not how I would want to go about figuring out what I want to write about, based on what the popular keyword searches are. I would want to have the freedom and the system set up to write about what I want to write about, and know that I can still get traction with that.
Absolutely. I a couple years ago there was this whole thing about the Marvel films, and bear with me for a
Mhm.
second. I'm going somewhere with this.
Okay,
Of
keep going.
how people who didn't really know anything about intellectual property law became intellectual property law like armchair savants, where it was like, oh, this rights will revert if this doesn't happen, and if this Spider-Man movie doesn't come out, this goes back to Marvel or what have you. And I felt like that was interesting back then, but with the rise of, say, Taylor Swift and Taylor's versions of music, I feel like
Yep.
everyone's come out the woodwork of being like music rights management gurus.
Yeah.
Have you come across that kind of like pop knowledge when you're like, look, I'm an expert. I take the time to actually learn about sync rights and master rights and all that jazz. And someone goes, no, but I heard X, Y, and Z from the Google search or WebMD or whatever.
Yeah, I would say that there's just a general lack of knowledge in that regard. People
Okay.
don't know, they don't know the differences between. the different legal entities, which are so crucial. They can literally make or break your career, as is demonstrated by Taylor Swift's whole effort of having to recreate her or re-record her entire catalog. It's like, it's unprecedented what she's done, and it's crazy to think that you can achieve what she achieved and then have to do it again just to be able to make Taylor Swift's making a healthy living, but be able to make the money that you deserve to make off of your recordings.
Yeah.
So I think that knowledge is really key, and it's really lacking. And yeah, I mean, I think people are people, and they kind of believe usually the first thing that they hear. And I think if you're of the mindset that, you should take everything at face value, then that will probably hurt you in the long run.
Yeah. Do you have a portfolio of artists now, or is that in development? What's that like?
What do you mean, a portfolio of artists?
Like, that are going to help you with your business. The idea of helping them with knowledge and helping them navigate the musical.
Oh yeah,
industry.
yeah. I have clients that I help, and
Yeah.
and I love seeing that transformation. It's there's a learning curve I'm noticing.
Yeah.
And I'm not surprised, but there is really this kind of like school is in session period before we can even get down to like the actual songwriting,
Right.
because it's like you have to learn the language before you can start writing books in it, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. It does seem like it's I always tell people that the promised land of success is like a nightclub, but like the bouncer changes every hour.
yeah,
You sweet talk one of them and then they leave like, oh, come on.
yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
put me on. New Amsterdam Radio, the podcast for creatives. When we have everyone on the show, we kind of ask them a bit of department questions, kind of like a lightning round. Are you down to play
Yeah,
with me?
sure.
Cool. Oh, look, you work long hours, so when it's time to refuel, let me know, what's your favorite junk food?
Oh, well, I try not to eat junk food for health reasons,
Fair.
but when I am feeling particularly, I don't know, undisciplined, I guess is the word, I love sweets. So I will go for like chocolate, or I really love Swedish fish.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. Yeah.
Reese's peanut butter cups. Yeah, anything that kind of gets you that like boom sugar high.
It's the best kind. I would say I'm a sweet tooth, but I also eat everything else. So
Yeah.
it's still,
Well, yeah, I'm not a food discriminator at all.
for
I'll
real.
pretty much eat what you put in front of me.
I'm about that life. Do you or don't you believe in midday naps?
Oh, absolutely. I believe in any time of day naps.
That I respect. 3 a.m. Why not? What is on your travel bucket list if you have one?
Oh yeah. Greece for sure. I would love to go to Ireland. I would love to go to Eastern Asia, like Tokyo, South Korea, some cities in China, Australia. I mean, everywhere. Who doesn't want to see the world?
That's true. I mean, if you get the opportunity, go ahead and do it. Two more for you. Everyone collects something. What do you collect?
What do I collect? Oh man, I don't know if I really collect anything in particular.
Like memories, scrapbooks, photographs, keychains, mugs. My mom's a big mug person.
Okay, maybe mugs, maybe coffee mugs. I'm a very particular coffee mug person. Like
Yeah.
the mug that I choose has to fit the vibe of the day or of the morning.
Okay. Yeah.
So I have to make sure I have enough in my inventory.
Side question: favorite coffee?
Favorite? What do you mean? Oh, like how I take it?
Well, I guess like brand if you have it. I mean, you're from the East Coast. So like, are you a Dunkin' person? Are you like a high craft coffee person? Like,
No, I'm not a fancy coffee. I am obsessed with drinking coffee, but and believe it or not, I'm not a fancy coffee person. But my partner and we recently discovered at Trader Joe's, they have this decaf organic French roast,
ooh,
whole bean, and it is incredible. And it's only $9.99 for that little, like, I think it's like 12 ounces or whatever, but
yeah.
it is just so good. I don't know what they do to it, where they get it from, but it is 100% so good. And I have trouble drinking anything else these days.
I'm with you. I'm not sure if this is a pro tip or a gross tip, but Trader Joe's has the Bay City blend that comes in the blue canister, and it's like it's like super over roasted. So what I do is like I'll take it out and put it in a paper bag, and then
Yeah.
I'll just leave it in my living room, and it becomes like a coffee house air freshener.
Oh my god, that's such a good idea. I never
Yeah.
even considered using fresh meat for that.
Yeah, it's great. People are like, "What's that?" Like, "That's my air freshener. Leave me alone."
Yeah.
Don't be judging me, bro.
Tease.
What's wrong with you? I drink coffee all the time. Like, coffee is my jam. I grew up on Dunkin'. That's my
Yeah.
regional one. But like, I'll do the high craft stuff. I'm not gonna egalitarian. If I'm in the mood
Yeah.
for it, I'll go for it. But gas station coffee is good too.
Yeah, whatever works.
Yeah. And lastly, what has been the greatest or most amazing thing a fan or supporter has ever given you?
Oh my, their deepest appreciation um, for the for the relief and the hope that they discover from actually finding support that helps them in their direction. And I hope that doesn't sound like a big pat on my back because I don't mean it in that way. But that's the best feeling because it was the best feeling for me when I found that.
Yeah.
You actually find it's like finding a good therapist or meeting someone who you just instantly connect with and you feel like you've got a friend for life. It's like that feeling of being seen and knowing that someone has your back. And so when a client is able to tell me that about the work that we're doing together, it's you can't ask for anything else. It's priceless.
I hear what you're saying, but I'm a firm believer of patting myself on the back and toot my own horn because no one's going to do it for me, right?
That's
Toot,
true.
toot, toot. Toot.
Toot my own horn.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been cool to hang out with you and
Thank
learn
you.
so much more about the craft of music, which is pretty awesome. But if someone wanted to connect with you or learn more about your services, how'd they go about doing that?
Yeah, you can just go right to my website. It's nismahosman.com and then /about, or you can do /call. They'll lead you to the most of the same page, and you can get in touch with me directly. And I guess I'll spell it for you because you probably don't know how to spell it. So it's NISMAHOSMAN and then .com/call. And you can just literally give me a call and we'll talk, and I'm happy to chat and see what's up.
Definitely over coffee, but you don't have to have
Yeah.
it at the ready. Thank you so much for being on the show. Appreciate you. I
Thank
want you
you
back in the future episode because this is so much fun and interesting just to learn more about like
Yeah.
that whole world,
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. I can talk about it all day.